Hello, everybody. Hey, Steve. How are you? Good to see you. Hi, everybody. I'm Gabe Michael, and today we're talking about or navigating the new wave of Gen AI tools. And I am the global SVP and group executive producer of AI at Edelman, which is a really long agency title. But that basically means that I have been tasked with bringing in enterprise-safe AI tools into our enterprise environment. We are fully slated. We're like an internal production company studio that is now just fully enabled with AI. And I continuously test tools and workflows every single day. But my experience is a filmmaker. I've been a filmmaker for 20 years. And I happened to get into AI very early, 2 or 3 years ago now. Actually, my first project was in 2018 with like very, very early tools. But I happened to win one of the earlier film festivals. And so Edelman brought me in to be like, you know these tools? And I said, sure, I do. And so they brought me in to teach our internal teams how to use the tools, but also create workflows and things like that. So I'm continuously testing on a daily basis. And I like to share my findings on my website, Creative Possible. So when you're working with AI, everybody has their own opinion with it, right? But I like to think of it as I have to have a philosophy when I'm talking about it. And my philosophy is that there's no magic button when working with AI. A lot of people think that you just type in a prompt and you get a full film, or like this music video I created here. This was actually a huge pipeline in order to do this, even though this entire video was text to video. I prompted every single clip individually and edited it together, and it actually took longer than it would at the time to have edited something in a real production environment. So right now there's a lot of workarounds that we have to use in order to kind of fit it in, but the direction that we're headed is like for fully integration into our standard pipelines. I like to look at AI with the craft element, right? It is not automated. It can be if you want it to be, but the slop that people talk about isn't this. I mean, I made it, so I think it's okay. But but there's the whole thing online of AI slop. It's this, but I think what people are really talking about is automation. There's no human storytelling in automation, and I hate the term human in the loop because I fucking made that with my hands, with my mind, right? And I hate that term. So I'm like an evangelist for the space of just filmmakers, right? Like we have this opportunity now to tell these stories, but we can do it in a rights-managed way. We can do it in the most ethical ways possible, and we can use humans at every touch point that we can and that we should. And it really just depends on the individual project. So like I just said, slide ahead of myself. Using an AI in production does not mean that it has to be automation. There's automated processes. There's been automated processes in production for years. It doesn't mean that if you use AI that it is automated or that it has to be, right? That nobody wants this. But there are a lot of misconceptions in AI and creative. Number one, like I said, it's not a magic button. I think it's magic because when I'm sitting there with my workflow and my amazing setup in my room when I'm in my VRE sweatpants, working in the middle of the day, it feels like I'm sitting there at Video Village. But I am also brainstorming and I'm also storyboarding at the same time as I'm editing. And there was one day where it kind of clicked to me that this whole process is a little bit more fluid than filmmaking, right? I don't have to think about what can't happen because of a budget. I don't have to think about what somebody else's opinion is going to be on this. I can do like a pure flow and maybe it's not the right thing for today. Maybe I want to go back tomorrow and make some changes on it. But you can really, really live in the moment. And it's something as a filmmaker that I've never had. There's a reason I'm a filmmaker and not an artist. I can't hand draw anything. I've always hired storyboard artists to do things. But this is the closest thing that I've had to really be able to rapidly get out of an idea, whether I want to explore that further or not. And then there's obviously real limitations to some of the work right now, but we can't just look at what the limitations are, and we can't look at where the technology is now. Like for instance, this is the Gen 48 short that I did for the first Gen 48 contest. It was Runway's first AI competition that I won a few years ago. And it still holds up a little bit, but there's like what we could do then and what I could do now 3 years later is I thought we would be here in 2028, 2029. It's just rapidly evolving. So we have to look at like these workflows that are not quite here yet, but we have to imagine what they'll be in the next few years. And that, the last point here is that quality requires real effort. It requires craft, and you don't have to use AI in every part of the production, right? And this is just kind of a mind map here of how I think about AI. There's productivity, right? And these are like the 4 buckets. Productivity. Cognitive offloading is a term that I heard a few years ago, and I love it because it's taking that is making your brain free to think, to not have to worry about the how of it and just do the do. And you can create processes around it. It's what a lot of people talk about and think about when they talk about the co-pilot of it, right? That part of AI. And then there's the single-use asset of somebody that just needs to pull up a picture in Midjourney. They just want to do one thing for a slide deck, something like that. Maybe they're not an artist. They're not claiming to be. They just need to generate an asset. And then there's the tool enhancement side. And the tool enhancement side is it's already integrated into everything. AI's been in music tools for 10, 15 years. We've all used it. Nobody knew, nobody cared until a few years ago, until the spotlight got put on it. It's in rotoscoping, right? It's already been baked into Adobe products for years. It's the type of things that most people on the internet don't care about, won't ever think about again. It's just part of the AI pipeline, or part of the VFX or the special effects pipeline, right? And there's what I'm going to talk a little bit more about today, which is AI animation and custom workflows. Now, when I say animation, I don't necessarily mean it has to be like a Pixar style or an animation style, some of the things I've seen before or showed before. But something that's, the process is filmmaking, I would say, but it's more akin to animation than anything else. And you can also, once a workflow is created, there are times where you can automate and you can repeat processes, but that's not the craft part. I'm not going to show the whole film here because it's long, but this is the most recent film that I made. And I did this mostly with VO3 product, or with Google products with VO3. It was for the 1 billion follower summit. There was a $1 billion AI film competition. And I wouldn't be here if I won it, so. Just kidding, I would always come back. But this is the most latest film that I've made, and it's already out of date. There's already things that during this process, new tools evolved, and I said, oh shit, I have to rethink how I'm doing my process again, right? But generally, and if you want, you can find it on my YouTube channel by scanning that. This is my full AI animation workflow process, and if you see here, it's very similar to just animation, right? But I purposely try to use AI products to test them for my job and then for myself and my interest to see where tools can plug in, where people can, and then we can see where the difference lies, right? Like, I start here in the top at the LLM, the script and shot list, right? I go all the way through the flow, all the way to the end. You guys know the editing, you know the VFX, you know this, right? But once you start in the beginning, there's a lot more work that needs to be done up front, so production becomes a lot more fluid. And it's not just a step-by-step production, right? Like we create characters. I have to touch them up. I have to do the shot creations, but then sometimes it doesn't play well in the edit, so you have to go back. So it's not just it's not a one-to-one process, but you do kind of have to hit every touch point at some point. So I'm not going to go through every step of this today because we don't have enough time, and you're going to get really tired of me talking at that point. But they wanted me to talk today about the best models, right? America's best top model. But I'm here. I want to tell you that there's really not a top model. And I think in the next few years, we're going to see that people are going to not forget the names of these models, but that they're just going to be the afterthought, right? What's really going to be the most important part is the process and the mindset behind these, right? So I could stand up here and talk to you about like how I love how Google Veo 3.1 has the sound integration into it. But this week Luma came out with a native sound integrated to it. Runway is coming out with it. Kling has it now. Sora has it within its app, right? And I could sit here and say how like Sora is now playing the meta game of they are now playing social media, right, as opposed to a filmmaking tool. But they're also a filmmaking tool. People use it, right? But I really think it's more important to focus on the how. So, when I'm sitting in my edit bay and I'm thinking of a shot, how I want to do it, I'll do what's called, in production we call it auditioning, right? You audition an actor, you audition what that hat looks like on that person. I do the same thing for a model. So I was speaking in Korea at the end of last year, and this all starts from one photo from my hotel room and one prompt, right? I wanted to see what each model could do, and I did this in about 15 minutes, right? Put this whole thing together. I wanted to see what they would dream up of with one very simple prompt. But I do this with every single shot that I make, right? So everything always starts with an image, or most of the times it starts with an image. But then I will pop it into every single model and see which one handles it better. But then there's also factors to think about is, am I doing this for myself and putting it out on the internet? Am I doing this for a client? Am I doing this for the agency? Do we have the rights to use these, right? These are all questions that we have to ask. And they keep, the question list kind of keeps growing, right? So we have to ask the right questions. And the right question is we must assess our ecosystems, right, of what we're working with. Because all these models are now, you could go on to Free Pick and get access to all those models in one place. Runway has Veo 3 integrated into it. Almost every model is now becoming their own aggregator because they know that it's the ecosystem that matters. But that also matters for your enterprise environment or for your personal workspace, right? And you have to prioritize the flexibility. You have to look for partner models that align with your budgets. You have to look with partner models that align with the garden that you live in. Like I said, a brand project, you can only use certain models because they don't have the proper indemnifications. Then you have to define the utility of those models, right? And the tools that you're using to get them. Because the reality is, but then you also have to mitigate the risk and verify compliance. If you're in an enterprise environment, there's a whole list of things you have to do: SOC 2 compliance, ISO 27001, and then you have to work with your IT, and it's a process, right, just to get any of these tools cleared. But once you have them, you have to be able to know at any given moment which one that you and your clients can use, but also what you have the proper amount of cash to do. So for instance, at Edelman, we primarily use Runway, which has some Veo 3 in it. But if we wanted to use Veo 3 within a trial or within our Google team, we can't because we don't have the proper indemnification to do so. We have 11 labs within Veo or within Runway's system, but we don't have the right to use that within Runway's system. We have to use the Veo 3, or sorry, we have to use the 11 labs account that we have, right? Because those ones are very specific to the indemnifications that and the rights clearances that we have. So it's unfortunate. It's the downside of this is that the terms of service really matter, but you have to know and you have to read into those. So today I want to talk a little bit more about the fundamentals. So the right questions to ask when you're looking at models, when you're looking at how to build your workflow. And this may be a little bit repetitive for some of you that have played with some of the tools, but I'm hoping that it kind of gives you a broader context to how I'm thinking about it and where we're going to go in the next few years. So prompting. Everybody has their opinion about prompting, right? It's really just an input that directs an AI model, right? Most people think your natural language, you're typing something, a whimsical dragon flies through the air, he does X, Y, Z, right? And that's what I think most people think AI filmmaking is, right? But the reality of this is prompting, really, all it is context and control, right? When we think about our dashboard of when you see a prompt done through natural language, I think of it as DOS before Windows, right? Before there was a dashboard to control that prompt, right? But is a prompt isn't just language. A prompt can be a control. It can be, if anybody's played with Higgsfield, they now have like a camera control in there. But really all that's doing is prompting. If you think about when you're typing on a keyboard, what are you doing? You are prompting the keyboard to send a signal. And that is what is happening. But we have to do things in the way that a model can understand the context of what we're saying. So it's very technical, but it's also, you have to think like a human and you have to think like a filmmaker when you're doing it, because, and you have to have that kind of working knowledge of it in order to do so. So I tried, actually a few days ago, I gave a full, like 3 or 4 hour presentation to my DP of 20 years, because he's like, teach me about this. How do I now am ready to learn about this. And he didn't really understand the difference between prompting and which model was best. And then when I broke it down to the context, so I just want you to think about that as we go through. That's when it like really started to click for him. So we can do things now. We can build out proprietary workflows for any individual task. This happens to be a task that we did in Runway. I couldn't tell you which one because I do a lot of these. But really, if you follow the flow here, you can see different models that are up here. You have an input, whether it's text-based. You also have inputs at one point that become images, which then lead to the next one, which are derivative of the next ones. And you're giving it process and you're giving it direction every single step of the way, right? So could you technically make one workflow that does an entire video? You could, but in doing that, you are actually giving it direction. So you are actually directing it, right? Like just like I would if I was telling my crew or my DP how I wanted the set to look, how I wanted the actor to dress, right? So I could create a full-on process that would be huge and be very confusing, and it would break almost immediately, but it is technically possible, but nobody wants that. Me as the filmmaker, I don't want that. The audience doesn't want something that's popped out. So it's more about figuring out what your process is, and now the tools are just becoming so easy. Like this looks super complicated if you've never done node base. It's actually not. It's just like drawing a line to the next one. This is just all compressed for this type of space. It's saying, I want an image, which probably isn't shown here, like an image that you drop in here, to give me all these different angles. But I've already thought of and shot listed what those angles are, or else it wouldn't have done that, right? So continuing on prompting, few ways to do it. Natural language, like talking to your DP, talking to your crew. And then you can also do JSON prompting, which gives the same, if not the exact same output, right? If you've tried it before. But what it's doing is it's speaking a language that is more familiar to the model, right? This is more familiar to a human. This is more familiar to a model. But I believe the way that we're going with the type of control that we are going to have and that we already currently have, that this type of thing of saying like what the emotion is, what the shot type is it what the depth of field is. Like we're starting to get more granular and granular. The things and the questions that people that have been working in the business for years answer on a daily basis, but there's nobody directing this. Like, right, we are the ones that have to input that, right? But it all comes down to this. Like, if I was the director, I would say these things on the left. But when I give it to my DP, he's going, okay, well, you want that really shallow depth of field look, so we're going to have to go with a 100mm lens backed up, whatever it is. And that's a very similar process. So I believe we're going towards a future, whether we all have to JSON prompt. I don't think that's going to be the case. But I believe it's going to be built into every single ecosystem that has access to AI tools. Text to image. So what we think of, right? We write a text, or we write a prompt, and then we get an image out, right? We can do all the things. I think everybody's tried it at some point here. But in my process, when we are storyboarding or starting to turn these into to videos, it is the starting point for everything in AI production, because once I figure out the consistency of whether it's the person or the look or the feel of the film, I can now live within this, and I use one image usually per scene that I do as the source of truth to dictate everything else. Think of it as the master shot, but for your entire scene or entire production. Right? So for this was done in one prompt. I took this image here on the right, and I put it into Gemini 3 or Nano Banana Pro, whatever you like to call it. And with this one prompt, I wanted to see what the whole scene coverage could look like. The high angle, the low angle, her close-up. And though it's not perfect, because I didn't really do much prompting, I just said I want to see this scene from a high, low, medium, close-up, whatever. This is all done in one image in 15 seconds, right? And now I know. I'm like, damn, I know what this scene can look like. So now I can get more specific. Now, the top-down angle, I don't like that, but I really like when she kind of like turns away from the camera, the man's out of focus there, and it really like will help me build my shot list. So, I was talking about my film Gym Rats. We weren't able to do this in Nano Banana or it was original Nano Banana, but in making that film, I now had the opportunity to just instantly think of coverage, right? And this is something that I would workshop for a long time with my DP usually, but now, like this is, like I said, 15 seconds. And then moving on, we have image to image, right? So somebody asked me earlier today about like the copyright aspect of AI film, right? Well, if it's all created on computers, who has the copyright? I'm like, I do. I created it, right? First of all. But oh no, you can't. They said AI images can't get copyrighted. Yes, they have said one AI image cannot be copyrighted if it was just completely drawn up from a computer. I put the inputs in. If I draw a sketch, like I did here on the left side, and feed it to a model, it's been proven in court that that is a derivative and that is the original, and that is still my work, and I own the copyright behind it, right? So start everything with a sketch if you can. We are waiting on some court cases to settle, and we're waiting for some clarity on a few things. But when you're using clean models, when you're doing something that is derivative of something that already exists, an AI film is a series of images, right? And series of different shots. Every single one is derivative of the other. And so if you put me up in court, I would spend every dollar that I have in order to defend that I made that and that I have the full copyright on it, right? But we can do things now with image to image, right? You can style transfer things. I could take I'll get to that in just a second. I could take my little Pixar-esque alien here, and I could say I want it to be like a war-torn drama. And I could actually show it either another picture or give it even a color scheme. Like I could go and get all the different colors across a color palette and say, now change it to this, right? So we can image edit, right? But then we can also start taking these things and putting them into a place that you can control more. And I'm hoping in the future, and I just know it's going to get to this point. When we're talking animation, if you ever animate anything or seen anything, we're talking about character sheets, right? You got to know what Mickey Mouse, you can know what he looks like from the side, you know what he looks like in every single position. And these are the sorts of truths that we use to make sure that a character is consistent. And the only thing that's missing within the AI models is the context to know what the character looks like, right? So now we have the capability of just taking this. This is like one of my little characters, and then this handsome guy right here is me as a wizard, because I just wanted to see how close I could replicate my face, and that's me on a good day, but that's a pretty good image. So I took these two right before I went to Korea, and with one prompt I said create a 9-part image series as individual images, one right after another. There's some technical things. I said what film stock I wanted it to look like, which is Kodak Porta 800. That and 400 I use all the time for prompts. And then the content is the wizard and the robot are having fun throughout Seoul. So similarly, like I did with the woman, I just put that one prompt into Google Nano Banana in this, and I get all these different scenes. And these are actual tourist trap places in Seoul, right? As you can see, the face kind of falls apart at points, but for the, it is me for the most part. If I wanted to take this one image, crop it, or even then take this image and tell Google or tell Nano Banana, actually I want to see the close-up of here, but then I reference back, and I'll input my character sheet again, and it'll give me a crystal clear image of my face and of that character. So where we're headed with all models, I believe, is to a place where we have that source of truth just baked in. And on all the workflows that I make, that's how it is. Everything referenced back to the character that we're using, or the scene if there's like a master shot. So it's context for the models to know, right? Where we're not at right now is for an image model to know, you can put in, or sorry, a video model to know what a character sheet looks like. I could put this in, but the fidelity is going to be pretty low. But I'm predicting that in the next year, we're going to be able to pop in a character sheet or some sort of file. It could be a 3D file, but we'll have all the aspects needed to see what a character looks like, and it'll just be the context. It'll just be a control that the model will now know. So we're kind of hard coding it right now. We're popping in images, and we only have so many images that we can add when we're doing image to image. But we are going to get there very, very soon. So just like text to image, there's text to video. And it's, like I said, it's exactly what you sound like. But I could never get consistency across this, right? My very first film that I made with AI, all the characters look different. That's because, but they were kind of similar. That's because the prompt that I used was the same prompt to tell the model what the character looked like, but there was no capability of showing the model what I actually meant. Now, we can with image to video, right? I can now take this image here and bring it to life, right? I can tell it not only what this character looks like from this image, but actually bring this one to life. And by the way, Google, why don't you go ahead and talk?
This meeting should have been an email.
Right? But what's interesting, I don't know if anybody learned this in film school or anything, but I was taught in my directing classes that there's this thing called the emotion wheel, right? And psychologists use this all the time. We're on the emotion, like how do you feel, right? It's taking the 4 or 5 basic emotions, happy, sad, angry, and breaking them down even further, because the more context that you get with those words, those action words, the more that you can be very specific about that emotion, right? So I did a test specifically with this setup here, that image, and then one prompt, and I said the wizard speaks to the crowd and with a blank tone says this meeting should have been an email. And I did that for every single emotion on that emotion wheel, and I got 42 different performances. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. Some of them I should have re-rolled again, but that wasn't what I was doing. I was testing it like I would an actor. Now, do I want to replace actors? No, that is actually the one thing I don't want to do. But when you're in an environment where you're animating, real human, realistic people, I do not want to replace. But when we're in an environment where I'm testing these things to push the model to see how far it'll go, it gets pretty damn good. So moving on. So one of the basic tenements of this type of animation is start frame, end frame. If you've done any sort of animation in the past, it's tweening. You start with where you want the image to be, and you put the image where you want it to end, and the model fills in the gap. And in that gap is where you put your prompt. And the prompt can, and I'm hoping that there's more controls for this going forward, but essentially you're saying it like interpolate this, like predict how we get from here to here, and then the model looks at your prompt. So for this one I said, zoom past the man and end on the clock. And it got there, right? It's a 5-second clip, and the clocks, I noticed after I did it that this one doesn't have a second hand, and it's actually not the angle I would pick if I was going in if my DP shot this, right? But that's easily correctable. It's the same clock on the same wall, essentially, right? that type of thing is editable. So now we can either go back and take this within real shots that we have. If we were like on a real production and we missed a shot, you go, damn, I really want to zoom past that. Now we can. But we can also animate any shot that we want, whether it's for an animatic or a storyboard. We're just kind of living in that in this world. So I don't do this for everything. Sometimes I just give it a start frame, but I would say 99% of the time I give it an image to start with. But now we're getting to the world where the models and the controls for these models understand even more. So as you'll see here, this is free pick. Is this free pick? Yes, this is free pick, where they have elements. And I'm using Kling 01. It's a great new model that's come out. But you can put multiple characters. You can put multiple references in there, so the models now have context. So technically, I could put every angle I wanted to of one character, and it would understand what it looks like more around. But for this example here, I just put my character, and I said they're all watching the character from image 4 walk through the city. And it actually put in all of those characters into that. Is it great? Not yet. But this is just the beginning. And then there's video to video, which is the same thing as image to image, but in a video context, right? For this particular one, you'll see in a minute the final shot. But I took a video of me, and I took that starting first frame of that video, and I exported it, and I said, then I took my image of my wizard character sheet, and I said, dress me in a wizard and put me in a wizard's cottage or something like that. And then I took both of those, the driving video of me, which you'll see in a minute, and the wizard, and combined them together.
Okay, here I am at the office, just getting ready to pack it in for the holidays. Let's see what this clip turns out to be. Whee!
That's obviously my office chair.
That was dizzying.
My office doesn't look like that. But as you see, I did do a full 360 turn, and did it go back to where it started? No, it hallucinated. But it only hallucinated because it doesn't know what is behind me. And if there was that extra layer, if I could put in that extra control of here's the 3D environment, plus the motion that I just captured, plus the look and the feel, the set dressing, you put them all together in the AI soup, and it will give you that full outcome. And there's right now we're in a world where we're working around a lot of that, but we are just days away from having that kind of full control. And if anybody's heard of the general world model, which is it's what's happening this year, it's what Google's doing, Runway's doing it, Luma's doing it. It's essentially where you get a full 3D playable space that generates in real time, but has permanence. And permanence meaning I can paint on the wall, look away, come back, and that's there. And when we have this element, like this is the missing element to really make this type of animation just production standard. And then very similar to, it is video to video, but these are models trained on performance. I take a video of myself performing, and I take a still image or a video, right, of this, and you do the performance yourself. So I love this for animation because it brings actors back, right? It's not the model predicting it. It's you as the actor, but you get to play any character that you want. As you see here.
So why was 6 afraid of 7? Well, because 7, 8, 9. I guess that's not the same as 6, 7 now, is it? If you have kids, you understand.
So like every movement in that was me doing the acting, just sitting there in my chair. Right now, within like the Runway system, they have a pretty good one called Act 2. But Kling just came out with a really great motion capture and performance capture. And Luma from Luma AI, they have Ray 3.14 now. It changes every single day. But we're now to the point where we're going out with cell phones, capturing the motion that we want from every scene, and just dressing the actors. So it could be me, and I could be a beautiful woman, or I could be an animated character, or I could be whatever, an alien, whatever I want to be. And I'm doing like the the motion capture essentially for each individual scene. Now, are the clips long? No. We're capping out at 10, 15 seconds at the very, very most. But where we're headed is, I believe once the general world model is added to this layer, that it's going to be 30 seconds, minute, 2 minutes. I believe in 2 to 3 years, we'll probably get up to 4 or 5 minutes in one generated clip. Upscaling right now is a big factor. Most models come out a pretty low resolution right off the gate just because they want to save compute. And I use Topaz and Magnific religiously. But honestly, I'm using them less and less these days. Magnific is great if you haven't, it like adds a layer of texture that most models don't have. It's kind of like a finishing upscaler. But honestly, I'm either working in Runway or I'm working in Veo 3 and it comes out at 720p or 1080. And I maybe upscale it to 4K, but now you can upscale natively within these ecosystems, right? So it's becoming less and less of a thing, and we're putting out 4K quality imagery right now, so you don't even have to upscale images if you don't want to. But there's also like creative upscaling that you can do where it looks at the structure and it'll analyze it as it upscales, or you can change the lighting. And that's so you could basically go and shoot in a really flat room, give it a lighting scheme that you want it to look like, and then it'll automatically come out the way that you want. And then we can't forget about AI sound, right? Which includes voiceovers, but it's very similar to the image side. There's speech-to-speech transfer. There's text-to-speech for Gym Rats, my film. If you've played around with any of these models, you know that. I guess as of last week, you can now add a voice clip up. But before last week, you couldn't. None of the characters would come out, even though they could speak, with the same voice consistency. You could do image consistency, but you couldn't do. It would be a different character talking every single clip. So, for Gym Rats, I went back and I both did speech-to-speech transfer for a character's voice that I created. Which I also just prompted of what I wanted it to look like and then chose. And then I also did various takes of speech-to-speech. But it's just like I'm sitting in the edit bay because I have to pick and sync and see which one is the best take. And so I'm using those skills that I've had over the years and that I've grown over the years in order to be able to do that. And like I said earlier, workflow, like this is it, right? You can use Comfy UI, Runway, FreePick. There's a lot of node-based type workflows out there, but it's really you get to design how you want to and how you plug and play controls. In an ecosystem like Runway, you only can use Runway models. You can use Veo, you can use Google models as well, and they have some other partner models that are supposedly coming. But in Weavy, you could go and you can get any model that you want to off Fall AI. You could plug in any open source model, and you can also start to integrate tools. And now that a lot of the tools have the MCP, the protocols that they talk to one another, a tool like Photoshop is becoming a process where you can just talk to it and say, I actually want you to extract this and it looks like this, and it does it for you. So we're like really going away from the having to manually be an expert at any individual thing, but you have to know what you want and you have to know exactly what you're looking for. But I think almost every piece of software is going this way. And within these node-based systems like Comfy, Runway, FreePick, and Weavy, these now become apps. I have an architect build this, or I build this in the back end, and then I create a front dashboard for you, and I say, whether it's a client or whether it's a filmmaker or whoever, and I say, here's what your inputs are. Just put in your prompt, put in this, and what I built will do this, and it'll do it within the walled garden that I've created. And we can start to put front ends on these as well. And that's actually what the majority of the websites out there are that aren't their own models, right? There are these types of systems in the back end, whether it's most of them are Comfy UI, but now they have the capability of anybody can basically create their own process and then essentially create their own controlled system and their own app. We'll end it kind of where we began at the AI models. This is particularly free pick, where I went and grabbed the screen grab for the models. And this is what the models are now, is they're your choice. They're, I don't want to say film stock. I don't want to say camera. They're whatever works for the specific task and ecosystem that you're living in, right? And now it's a menu here. It shows you exactly what each model can do. You can pick the cost. You can see what works with your budget. And you know, there's like I said earlier, everyone does something different. I like to say that it's kind of like selecting your camera, but there's no one-to-one analogy. So like I said earlier, AI animation is, to me anyway, is storyboarding, directing, and editing all at the same time. It's a fluid process. Can we substitute people? Can we bring people into the process? Can people be doing the image generations so we keep people you know, as part of the team? Absolutely. But it really just depends on the job and about what the outcome is that you want to do. But it's all at the same time. I'm going to stop it here because we could keep going for about 20 more minutes. So I'll open it up for any questions.
I have a question about if I want to make, let's say I want to make a video, a music video with a singer, and I want to play around with AI, and I film the singer singing a song. But then I want to add a lot more shots in, you know, from different angles, etc. My first question, which seems like, having seen all this, seems like it should be incredibly doable and it'll come out in 5 minutes. But what?
It will take way longer than 5 minutes.
But I'm also worried about, you know, exposing her to, you know, Google or all these companies and her voice and her singing, because God only knows what's in that long license lock that you know, click on. I mean, could she end up somewhere else, or her singing end up somewhere else, or what are the ramifications of all that?
Well, they say no, but they say no. But here's the thing: is you're in an enterprise environment. This is why you get indemnification, because they're saying no. But if you can prove it, and if courts prove it, then you're screwed because you're the filmmaker. But if you have indemnification, you at least have coverage up to a couple $1 million, right, for those types of packages. But ethically, you have to ask her, and you have to get written permission from her in order to do that. And you have to be the educator and explain to her what the risks are. But a lot of times, these artists are like, if it's out on YouTube, if they put a video out on YouTube, Google's gonna scan it. Like, we just know. It's like, it's part of the terms of service, I'm sure. So if we get so locked up in, they already know. But could they identify her specifically? Probably not. But her voice may become part of the ether of all of this, of the training data. That's the walled garden that we're not sure of. But when you maintain your ecosystem and you maintain your rights, what we call a rights managed approach, where you, just like you would if you're producing anything, you get the rights. You get her signature, right? I mean, if she's hiring you for a video, that's a different story. But it's the same process. Yeah.
How do you feel personally about uploading content that you create? Do you feel like
I upload everything because it's already out there. It's already public domain. Not that they have rights to use it, but public domain it's already displayed. It's out on YouTube. It's part of the ecosystem already. They've already scanned it. That's the unfortunate part.
Sorry, I'm Google.
Oh,
So,
we have a spy in the room.
AI content creator and creative strategies for Google. To that last point, the same process and the same risk that you took when you submit anything to YouTube, you are taking the same risk when you're submitting your AI created videos to YouTube. The process is the same. We are not going to, like, the models are never going to steal the information that you're using to create. But once you put it on the internet, it's the exact same risk that you're taking when you submit an Instagram story, a YouTube video, publish anything on Facebook. It's not about only the companies and the companies behind those models. It's about whoever is on the internet once that is public, right?
you're saying anybody can steal, right?
I mean,
But I know, but Google does steal.
Well, it's public. It's yeah. Everybody does. They have us. Everybody has us if you're out there. Sorry, we have time for just one more question.
This kind of relates. This is ancient, but last month I was using 3.1 Veo, and I'm like, okay, put me inside this postcard, a historic postcard. Put me inside there, and everything's going around so far now. But the output comes out that I become like a mix between myself and Matthew McConaughey, and I sound like him, and it's obvious that this is Matthew McConaughey. So I don't know if you wanted to take a stab.
Hey. No, because like I said, there's no context there, right? Like you have one image of you, it has to hallucinate the rest. But the minute that we have a full 3D scan of you, the model knows exactly what you look like, and it's trained on you. You know, in the old days of last year, we used to call them LoRa's, which it knows exactly what you look like, and you could load a LoRa up, right? But we're talking about like high-res versions of you. And there's more high-res versions on the internet and training data of Matthew McConaughey than there are of you. So you should be thanking them because they're associating you with him. So I think that's all the time that we have today, guys. Thank you guys so much.